What's happening, people? It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown, here for another episode of the TBL podcast, man. Episode 90 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast. Delighted to be joined here as always. Been a couple of weeks out, but we're back. Laurie from AFTV is in the house. What is going on, man? What have you been doing for the last 2 weeks?
No, I've been chilling, man. First of all, it's good to be back. Shout out to all the people watching. Much appreciated. Yeah, I've been chilling. I've been away for a few days as well during that time, and just been kicking back, relaxing, man. Not doing anything too strenuous, but ticking over, if you know what I mean.
Birthday a couple of weeks ago, I believe, as well.
That's right. My birthday, yeah. And I was away. My girlfriend took me away for a short inland break. We went to Bath for a few days. Lovely part of the country. Chilled out down there for a few days. Ate well, you know what I mean? Drank a little bit, not too much. But yeah, it was nice. Yeah.
That's good, man. It feels like now, this period right now, almost like a bit of an off season for boxing.
Yeah.
Don't want to sound too American saying that, but yeah, almost like it seems like a bit of an off season, which was why, you know, it took a couple of weeks out. Do you know what I mean? Back at it. Not too much has been going on, but we still have enough to talk about today. So,
yeah, there's always stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, listen, before we get into it, as always, you guys know the drill, the procedure. Hit the like button as soon as you enter. Feel free to drop a comment. Let us know what you're feeling. Let us react to any of our comments that we make. And looking forward to catching up with all of you guys again, man. But let's get started, Laurie, man. We'll talk about, first of all, Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. Now, Ryan Garcia was in action. Was it last weekend or the weekend before? See, this is what my memory's just gone blank. I think it was it last weekend? The weekend before? Ryan Garcia.
I did see it. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, got a stoppage win over Javier Fortuna.
So what, bro? Right.
Again, calling out Gervonta Davis. This guy's really got an obsession with Gervonta Davis, isn't he? Ryan Garcia.
It's just a circus, really, isn't it? It's an absolute circus. I mean, he's gone on record publicly as saying that belts don't matter. He only wants Tank, and you know what I mean, it's just a whole load of nonsense to me. Some people seem to be entertained by it. As a so-called boxing purist, I like to think I was. To me, I mean, listen, if he fights Tank, then fair enough, I'll watch it. But I've got no real over desire to see that fight. I don't know about you. Yeah, it's a good fight, but there are plenty of other good fights out there, more meaningful, because there's titles attached to them. You know what I mean? I would rather see Devin Haney versus one of those guys, because Devin Haney's got the belts. But yeah, they're running their own little sideshow, it seems. And it's much like, really, it's a bit like what Jake Paul's doing, isn't it? Mm. What's the difference? Jake Paul's not fighting for any titles. He's just hyping up his own fights, going down his own lane of carefully selected opponents. And it would appear that that's what Ryan Garcia, and to a degree, Tank is doing as well. Really and truly, man, I'd like the public to kind of, not so much boycott it, but I think these guys need to be reminded, man, that boxing has a structure and that you just can't come along and just do what you want and expect the public to just tap into it hook, line and sinker, man. I'm not really that.
I totally agree. And unfortunately, I think that's the way it's going. Literally what you said there is kind of like why I said this to DS the other day. Shout out to DS. Like, a lot of these guys, man, I'm just becoming quite unlikable. Look, you don't have to like someone to appreciate their talent, but just in general, like, they're becoming unlikable. They're just, there's nothing really. It's just all clout to me now. Because
that's exactly.
Why are you not going for the undisputed champion at 135 pounds? You moved up to 140 now. All these belts are flying around everywhere. Is it just all about the clout now rather than the actual glory with a lot of these guys? I mean, if we want to go into it,
and the guys are coming out with asinine statements like he wouldn't feel proud to be the undisputed champion by beating Kambosos. Like, what a load of nonsense is that? So why was he fighting eliminators with Luke Campbell for it? You know what I mean? Why did he do that? It's just garbage. And unfortunately, there's a lot of so-called fans and media people that's taken in by all this. You know what I mean? Listen, if he wants to fight Tank and Tank wants to fight him, let him fight. But I don't think that as a public, we should be overly like excited by that fight, because at the end of the day, it's just their own little personal thing, isn't it?
Mm.
What does it mean in the wider scheme of things?
Well, yeah, it doesn't have a major impact
No.
on the like. Yeah, listen, it's a big fight. It might draw a big crowd, but like, how big a crowd? Because we don't know how big. We know like Ryan Garcia seems to have. He does have a following, so to speak, social media following. But I mean, what's his ticket sales been like? What sort of draw is he? What pool is he actually bringing to the fights? And that's not even
what I'm saying. These guys seem to be of this sort of very arrogant, aloof opinion that they are more important than the sport. And what was particularly distressing is to see former fighters, renowned champions who went down the traditional route, people like Bernard Hopkins, coming out and endorsing what Ryan Garcia is saying, just because he's involved with the whole Ryan Garcia thing, him being involved with Golden Boy. And so for him to come out and say that, I just thought that was, it was straight cap. I know that deep down he don't believe that shit. And secondly, I just thought, you're selling yourself out, Bernard Hopkins. You know what I mean? You're selling your integrity out at the altar of clout chasers like Ryan Garcia, you know what I mean? And to a certain degree, Tank. Because we said it on this show before, I'm a little bit disappointed at the level of Tank's opponents. You know what I mean? Keeps going up and down in weight, picking this guy, picking that guy. No one really wanted to see that Rolly Romero fight, you know? Did they? Who wanted to see that?
No one called for it. No
one called for it, man. In the wider scheme of things, it means nothing. There was no real titles on the line there. Just manufactured stuff. And that is what we're getting to. And like I said, when I used the comparison earlier, there's little difference between what them two are doing and what Jake Paul's doing, is there? Let's be honest. They're following the same format. You know?
Yeah, I don't really like where this is going, man. And look, people might watch this. They might say, "Oh, look at these two, man, shitting on a good fight. Oh, how can you can't impress people nowadays? It's a good fight." But listen, man, it would be. I would tune in. I'm not going to pretend I wouldn't tune in and watch it. But I'm just saying, like, where's the glory nowadays? You're not. You've got an undisputed champion at 135. All of a sudden now you're too big for 135. You're fighting at 140. You've shown no interest in looking at the number one guy, really. It's just been, yeah, I want Tank, I want Tank, I want Tank, I want Tank. And it's just like, on the other side now, you've got Mayweather and Mayweather Promotions. Oh, we're the A side, man. You know, you got to do this for us, got to do that. And it's just like you said, man, like, I'll watch it. I'll definitely tune in. But it's like, is this where we're going now? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'll tell you something, though, right? On a point of principle, I wouldn't pay to watch that fight, you know? I'll tell you that now. I would not pay money to watch that fight. I would watch it in terms of it being posted on YouTube or something like that. I would not pay money. And I'm telling you now, I will stick to that. If they ever do fight, which it seems like they might do, if they try to put that old pay-per-view stuff in this country, I will not be one of those purchasing it. Because I just don't think they're deserving of that, of my money like that. You know what I mean? Why can't they go down the traditional route and fight for titles? Because you have to understand, well, you do understand anyway, Zara, but people out there watching this and people out there, boxing fans, both casual and hardcore fans, what these guys are doing is setting a very dangerous precedent in the sport. If this sport is to have any integrity and any structure, stuff like what these guys are doing does not enhance the sport in any way, shape or form. All it's doing is lining the pockets of people like Ryan Garcia, Tank, Mayweather and Golden Boy Promotions.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I would watch the fight, but I wouldn't pay extra to see it. And I hope that a good amount of people out there take the same view. And then maybe that these guys will think twice before they start this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I will watch the fight because it's two good fighters, especially Tank. But in terms of the way they're going with this, the promotion and all that stuff, nah, it doesn't excite me at all. You know what I mean? Doesn't hold a candle to, say, Spence and Crawford.
Well, Ryan Garcia said that fight's bigger than Spence Crawford. I mean, this is the sort of, you know, this is the sort of crap I have to listen to.
Yeah.
Let me just give a shout out to the
Well,
people.
you know, Jake Paul's come out recently and described himself as the savior of boxing, which I nearly choked on my coffee when I saw that. I thought, don't be so disrespectful. Yes, you've done a few good things, and yes, you've made some money and you've created a buzz around yourself, but to describe yourself as the savior of boxing, what, because you knocked out Tyrone Woodley? Come on, bro. And it's a similar thing that Ryan Garcia is doing. I mean, come on, man. That fight with Fortuna the other day. Fortuna, I don't know if you saw Fortuna at the weigh-in. He actually's got more body fat on him than I have right now. And I don't want to lift up my shirt to prove it. But seriously, where did he train for that fight, Fortuna? Burger King? Because he wasn't in any type of shape. And if you doubt me, then you've only got to listen to the words of Ryan Garcia, who said a similar thing himself before the fight, that Fortuna didn't train. So him going on and knocking him out, it proves absolutely nothing to me.
Let me give a shout out to, we've got a few people in the chat here. Francisco, YK22, Ian Hamilton, Ash, Stefan. I see you all, man. Big up all of you guys. Ash has said here, Daryl, you've got your wish. Ben isn't facing someone who's washed or smaller than him. Look, this is another example. Look, and Ash is going to say I'm a real hater for this, and I'm not. Because, listen, I get it. And listen, I was endorsing it. So I guess, you know what I mean? You can call me a hypocrite or not. But this is the same sort of thing. Like,
yeah, of course it is. What does that fight mean?
Yeah, what does it mean?
It's nonsense. Like, I mean, I'm surprised at Conor Benn, really, to be honest. I'm not so surprised with Eubank because it seems that towards the tail end of his career, that's all Eubank seems to be about, just trying to cash in. Mm-hmm. He's literally a boxer cashing out on his own career, isn't he? He's calling out flipping Kell Brook. You know what I mean? 35-year-old welterweight that, you know what I mean, had one foot in retirement, came out of retirement, stopped Amir Khan. Then you got Eubank calling him out, right? That didn't happen because quite rightfully, Kell Brook's retired. So then now we're hearing about him and Conor Benn. I mean, where's the validity in that fight? What does it mean? So what, bro? Like, you know what I mean? It's just, and again, I would watch it, but if those guys think that they're going to get my money to watch that fight, hell no, I would not pay pay-per-view to watch that. So if Eddie Earn or whoever's thinking of putting that on as a pay-per-view, they can forget about it from me, from my perspective, because I will not be paying for that fight.
Well, listen, there's nostalgia there. Obviously, it would still be big. I'm not denying that. It would be big, like, and we're not really important here. It's the casuals that would lock in. Do you know what I mean? But when you actually break it down and dissect it, I mean, Conor Benn, some people say he ain't got much to lose, but he has, because if he gets beaten up pretty badly, we've seen the sort of lasting effects it could happen on smaller guys that have tried to jump up in weight, as like Kell Brook, for example. Then you've got Eubank, who's got nothing to gain from it, really, because people say, oh, well, you just picked on a guy that's 2 divisions smaller. And I feel like Matchroom need to kind of get this on for Conor Benn, for their sake, because, you know, right now, they're getting swamped by Sky at the moment, if I'm being honest. They're being swamped by Sky right now. So
I'm seriously starting to believe that with Chris Eubank, like I said, he's cashing out on his own career. I think he realizes that he's reached his ceiling. He's never going to win a world title. So what he's doing is looking around and saying, how can I make a few quid before I retire, or before I'm forced into retirement by getting beaten? So then he's looking around and seeing all these fights that might be made. The Kell Brook one was one, and now he's thinking, oh, Conor Benn. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm so disappointed in Chris Eubank, man. Seriously. I really did have high hopes for that guy. And I really did think that he was ambitious and wanted to do things the right way. He certainly started out that way when he first started boxing. But I guess he's been corrupted by money and clout. And that's what we're seeing here, man. Yeah, disappointed, man. And I'm disappointed with Conor Benn as well, because I thought he was on the road to trying to secure a title shot. That's what we kept being told, that they were building him, and that, you know what I mean, he was being very carefully maneuvered into a world title shot. Come to find out now, he's going to be fighting Chris Eubank Jr. And like I said, Will I watch a fight? Probably will watch it on account that I am a boxing fan and there will be interest around it, but I'm not going to support it in terms of pay-per-view money. No, hell no.
Well, I've got a couple of guys here that will pay for it. Ian Hamilton, one of them, he says here, I hate to burst your bubble, Laurie, but I'll pay to be at Eubank versus Ben. Asher said here, I'll pay for that pay-per-view all day long. And I get it. There's a storyline behind it. Listen, I'd probably pay for it, man. I've paid for worse. That's what I'd say. I've paid for worse, but I just don't like the idea of, this Garcia running down Tank. The fight don't mean anything, but you're saying it's going to be bigger than Spence Crawford. Ben and Eubank, I get it. Like, I guess it was always something that was tagged to be happen down the line.
So would you? You say you pay for Ben versus Eubank, but
I think I'd get sucked into it. Yeah, I think I would.
But then that's given into what these guys want.
I know, which is
why you're continually getting stuff like this.
Yeah.
What we need to do is reject and say, no, we're not interested. I know that's kind of, left field thinking and probably highly unlikely, but more people need to start doing it. So when the pay-per-views flop, then the promoters or the people who dream up these things, they might think twice next time, But if it's a success, if it's a financial success, everybody's going to be all over it, and it's going to be, let's do the next thing. You know what I mean? Let's see what we can think of next.
Yeah, but the problem is, it's the casuals that will. It's not for us really. It's for the casuals because that's where the money will come from.
Yeah, but you just said that you'd buy it, so
yeah, I would. But
so that's the problem.
But if the hardcores all chipped in and bought it, they wouldn't get the sort of numbers they want. They're aiming for the casuals. That's why they can get away.
No, well, they're aiming for anyone. But if the hardcore people do buy it as well, then obviously it's going to be a financial success. And listen, I don't begrudge fighters their money. I want to make that clear. But I just think that these guys are taking the piss out of boxing, really, aren't they? Let's be honest, man. Yeah. Chris Eubank Jr. is actually taking the piss now. He should be trying to secure a fight. There are plenty of middleweights, super middleweights out there that he could go after. Janibek is crying out for a world title shot.
Well, let's talk about Demetrius Andrade.
All of those guys. Yeah, they're all out there, man. You know what I mean? There's belts out there. Go for it. You said you wanted to be a legitimate world champion, and we believed you. We supported you. Come to find out now, man, that you're talking something completely different. You know what I mean? Like I said, what is the difference between what they're doing and what Jake Paul's doing next month against Azim Rahman Jr.? And even that, you know what I mean? People need to look into that a little bit more. Well, what he's doing there, trying to drag Rahman down to a weight that will be severely inconvenienced. It's not proper boxing, is it? You know what I mean? It's like, it's just not, bro. Like, it's just taking things too far now. So you want to dehydrate the guy in the first place, then you won't allow him to rehydrate, and then if you do get a win against him, you're going to be shouting it out from the rooftops. Yeah, I beat a boxer. I said, yeah, but you beat a boxer, but all the conditions were attached to it that made the guy so dilapidated that I can't even really take the win seriously if you do beat him.
Let's talk about another thing. And look, it sounds like we're moaning here, but listen, we just have to get it off our chest. Demetrius Andrade. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've been defending him for years. Demetrius Andrade.
Why is he not fighting Janibek?
Yeah,
he's literally running away from Janibek, calling out Eubank Jr.
And that call out video, Ash, that was corny, man.
That was corny in the extreme.
That was
I'm not being funny as well, man. It was slightly disturbing because he looked like he was slurring his words on. I don't know if he was drunk or what, but the man looked like he was slurring his words. So is there some CTE going in there already? Because some of it was bizarre as well.
It was
bizarre.
Doing
this for your mum and your dad. I've got kids. Oh man, it was bizarre, man. Either he'd had a few to drink, or he'd been smoking on something. I don't know what, but he seemed a little inebriated, man. Either that, or like the onset CTE is coming on.
Well,
any way you want to look at it, man, it was not a good look.
This thing with Demetrius Andrade, man, like I said, we were kind of getting behind him in terms of him getting the title shot, and he got that, he got the belt. and then really trying to get him to land the big fight against the Charlo. You've been pushing him for Canelo, and he's been complaining about being avoided for so long. Real talent, Demetrius Andrade, and like he now has got someone that's running him down. Janibek is really open with these call outs. He's saying, let's make it happen. Do you know what I mean? And now the WBO have ordered it. They've mandated that. And he's all of a sudden chasing Chris Eubank Jr. Like, what's going on, man? Like, you've got a guy that's running after you.
And this is what I'm saying, though. I've said it before. The one thing that the UFC and MMA has got over boxing is that they don't have license to do this type of stuff because they have what I call a benign dictator running that organization. Yeah. And what he does is he selects the fights, him and his little commission of matchmakers. They say, right, you will fight you for the belt, and that's it. There's none of this catch weights and this man running off to fight another man and denying other people of their title shots and so forth. You know what I mean? I mean, listen, if Demetrius Andrade wants to fight Eubank that much, right, let him go from fighting, but give up the belts. You've heard Tyson Fury, I don't know if you heard some statements been released coming out of his camp somewhere where he's talking about fighting some exhibition fight. Give up the belts, bro. If you don't want to retire and go that route of your career, do exhibition fights and all the rest of it, semi-retirement, retirement, whatever you want to call it, fair enough. You've earned that right. But just give up the belts and do your thing. You know what I mean? So,
what do you think Demetrius Andrade will do? Because he's not getting Eubank. Like, he's not getting him. Yeah, he's already. Exactly. That's what made it even more bizarre. Because Eubank's
I know that Jamal Charlo's called him out. So maybe that's a fight that could be made. Those two have got history. They've gone back and forth. They don't like each other. That is a legit fight, to be honest. That's the kind of fight I'd like to see.
Yeah.
Or give Janibek his shot. Janibek is a very good young fighter. He's ambitious. He's knocking everyone out. He looks the part. He's earned his right. Give him his shot. You know, I'm all calling you stuff. Just, you know?
Yeah. Quite a shame, really, because, that career began with so much promise, a very good talent, as you can allude to as well. Demetrius Andrade really had pound for pound level type of talent, but,
but he's still unbeaten now.
But he just hasn't been, if his career goes out like this, as, it's really a waste of talent in terms of what he could have achieved, in terms of potential, not in terms of what he achieved, because, listen, he's achieved more than a lot of people would have, but in terms of what his potential was and, how it's been pushed, and it's not really been.
I think it's fair to say he's made some very bad business decisions in his career. And this is yet another one that he's doing now. You know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, listen, he did have my sympathy for the way he'd been continually ducked by Canelo. But lo and behold, now he's doing a similar thing to what Canelo was doing to him by denying Janibek and people like that of their opportunity.
Yeah.
You know? So, it's very disappointing. Like I said, man, these so-called fights that, you know what I mean, people are just I wouldn't say making up, but like fights are being made between these catchweight fights are doing my head in, man. You know what I mean? It's gnawing away at the integrity of the sport, if you ask me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm a bit disappointed in Conor Benn. In fact, more than a bit, because like I said, I wanted to see him. I've been following this guy. I've been a big fan of Conor Benn, still am. But I wanted to see him go down that road and try and win a world title legitimately. You know what I mean?
Well, he could say he's still
a sideshow, man.
He could say he's still on track for that. He could say he's still on track for that.
How is he on track for that? How is he? He should be fighting. He should be looking to fight Stanionis or one of those guys, or you know what I mean, or Jerome Ennis and all those guys. Show me that you really want to be a world champion, bro, like what your dad did. You know what I mean? All this stuff is just extracurricular nonsense. Yes, it will get interest. Yes, it will make money. But the true boxing heads like myself and you, we're disappointed because we want you to go on to win world titles. That's what I always thought, that every young fighter, when they're coming in the game, you always say, yeah, it was my dream to become a world champion. Now it doesn't appear to be that way. Now it's all about money and clout.
I think we're too old school.
Well, I'd hate to see that dream amongst young fighters is not there anymore, man. Surely that should be what drives them, isn't it? To become champions. Yeah. I mean, I noticed with Conor Benn, he's not even a British champion yet. So maybe we were being told, weren't we, that the reason why he wasn't going down that route is because he was being carefully earmarked and structured towards a world title fight. They were developing him, getting in the right fights on the way to a world title. Now we're hearing he's going up in weight to fight Chris Eubank Jr. in a fight that, let's face it, other than personal bragging rights, what does it really mean, bro? Seriously, what does that mean? The winner of that, what are they going to get a belt saying, oh, this is the winner of the Eubank-Benn rivalry? Is there going to be a belt that they're giving in the ring?
So maybe the WBC might do that, yeah. They might do that. Ian says here, I'll be honest.
Disappointing, man. That's the word I would use to describe all this stuff. Disappointing.
Ian,
that makes me sound like an old school, bitter, sour guy. Then I guess, you know. But listen, I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks that way.
I'll read this out. Ian says here, I'll be honest, Laurie is spitting proper 90s rapper vibes. Stefan says here, PBC fighters are virtually out of the question. Uncle Al isn't sending any of his fighters to fight on an Eddie Hearn promotion. And like, this is the problem, man. This is politics.
This is the problem.
This is what's going on in boxing right now, man. And like, sound like we're ranting and moaning, but I guess that's just how, you know, it is sometimes, you know. But let's talk about some other news anyway, man. AJ and Usyk confirmed for Sky pay-per-view today. There was a lot of people over the last few weeks that were kind of like wondering what was going on with this. AJ signed a network deal with DAZN, who'll be screening his fights going forward. However, Sky have got the rights to broadcast this pay-per-view against Usyk next month. Now, to be honest, to me, don't really mean anything that the fight is on Sky or whether it's on DAZN. I'll be watching it either way, so it doesn't really matter to me. However, the undercard is not really doing too much for me. I saw Hrgovic and Zhang was confirmed as a chief support. But other than that,
that's a decent fight, you know.
Yeah, that's a good fight. Yeah, but the other fights, I'll be honest, man, I'm not really like too concerned about. However, it is all confirmed now. There were people that were a bit, you know, not nervous, but they were kind of like concerned that nothing was being announced and whatever. But it has been now. Your thoughts with the fight being on Sky pay-per-view? Does it mean anything to you that it's on Sky and not DAZN? Not really, does it?
Not really, no. I just want to see the fight. I expected it to be pay-per-view. I think they're saying that it's going to be $24.95, which, you know, I'm not ultra happy about paying that, but I will pay it. I will watch it. It's a fight I want to see. There is a lot of intrigue to the fight. A lot of people are writing AJ off. I'm not one of those. I would make Usyk the favorite, but I do think there is a pathway to AJ to win. And I respect that he's gone out and got himself a new trainer. Shows me that he's taking it seriously. And he's showing a bit of bravery there to get in there with a man that comprehensively beat you the first time around. So to do that again takes guts. So, yeah, man, I applaud that. And I will be watching the fight. And, yeah, that's the type of fight I will support. Unlike some of these catchweight fights that have got absolutely no consequence other than to line people's pockets and to get internet clout.
Price has gone up 27 quid now. Look, Ash is saying it's 20, so it's not 24.95, 27 quid. Stefan says 26.95, I think. 12% inflation. I think the additional cost has been described as. So yeah, the price has gone up a little bit, but this is another thing. Do you know what I mean? The prices are going up.
I'd rather pay that $26.95 for that than pay a penny towards what Conor Benn and Eubank are doing.
Really?
And similar. Yeah, I would not buy that on principle because I'm not supporting that. I'm not, because I think people in supporting that, and I know it's a long-term view, you know what I mean? You are creating a dangerous precedent in boxing where people are going to go off and do their own things. There'll be no structure in the sport.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what you're just encouraging people to do this now, because when the pay-per-view numbers come in and they realize how much of a success has been, they're going to say, well, listen, there's no need to. They're going to repeat that same mantra that people like Bernard Hopkins and Floyd and Tank and Ryan Garcia are doing now, saying, why fight for titles when, you know what I mean, we can go off and do our own thing and make money. I mean, I heard Floyd and Bernard Hopkins talking about world titles are not worth it in terms of sanctioning fees and all. They weren't saying that when they were fighting, bro.
Mm-hmm. No, they weren't.
You know what I mean? When your legacies were being built, the legacies that you're still living off now, by the way, you weren't saying that then. You know what I mean? It's a joke thing, bro.
Mm. You got a point. You've got a point, man. Like, I'm kind of concerned as to where it's going. I'm kind of concerned as to the direction of where, you know, Devin Haney's the undisputed champion at 135, and it's almost like he didn't win him. The way how, like...
Well, I mean, he's not getting the credit he deserves, because he went down there, he took the wrong end of pretty much everything, didn't he? The young guy's been calling everyone out. People have been giving... What I can understand is that people are giving stick to Devin Haney for him calling out the champions in an age where the opposite has been the case. You get people like Ryan Garcia ducking, dodging, diving away, fighting guys that are well past their best or clearly not interested, as in the case of Fortuna. And then the previous one to that, Tagbo, showed absolutely no willingness to fight. You know what I mean? Now, all of a sudden, he's there calling out Tank. What has he done to deserve that fight? Nothing.
Yeah, then you got to say, what, like, Tank as well, man. It's just like, the direction both of you lot are going in, it's just, yeah, maybe they deserve each other, man.
Yeah, like I said, these guys are taking the sport in a direction that is not good for the overall health of boxing, and people need to recognize that. When they're saying, yeah, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to watch it, think about what you're doing, people. You're actually encouraging these guys to do what they do. It won't be long before we see more of that over here as well. Can you imagine if Ben Whittaker says something like, well, I don't want to fight for the British title, so I will fight other in some glorified catchweight fight instead. You know what I mean? It's just, nah, it's not on, bro. I hope Ben Whittaker don't go down that route. I'm pretty sure he won't. I've listened to him. Sounds like a very clued up and ambitious young man who wants to fight for the titles. But I just hope he don't go down that route, because he's the kind of guy that's going to be the face of boxing in this country in a few years' time, I would have thought, if his career kind of lives up to the expectations. So he's going to be that next wave of fighter, isn't he? It'd be so disappointing for him to start coming out with his stuff. Well, actually, I don't need to fight for belts, because, you know what I mean, I can go on and fight this guy in a catchweight contest. And, you know what I mean?
We'll ask his dad. We'll ask Big T when he comes on next, man. We'll get his dad on here. We'll have a proper talk about it. Question for you here from Ian. He says here, what are your thoughts if Taylor versus Cat Rule 2, which is being lined up for the end of November, I believe, was on Box Office as suggested in a Boxing Scene article? What's your thoughts on that?
Again, I'll listen. I'm not blown away at the fact that I have to keep paying extra for these fights, especially we're living in a time now where cost of living and inflation is going through the roof and people's budgets are tight. You know what I mean? We all are in that boat. You know what I mean? So, yeah, but having said that, I would much rather pay my money to watch Taylor versus Cat Rule 2 than some of the other fights that have been proposed. I'd certainly rather watch that than Ben and Eubank, to be honest.
Ash is saying here, if Eubank-Benn is a classic, best believe that there'll be a second fight. Laurie is right in that sense.
Yeah, listen, man, it could well be a good fight. I'm not detracting from that because two good fighters. You know what I mean? But it's just a principle that I'm against. You know what I mean? And like I said, if they two want to fight, then fair enough, go and do your fight. But I'm not paying for it, pay-per-view. No chance.
Conrad says here, Shakur Stevenson is indicating that he may move up. He's somebody that I can get behind because he's someone like Devin Haney that is going for the glory.
That's
like
right.
He's not on this. He's going for glory. And like, if he does move up to 135, the list of options there are going to be, you know, he's got the likes of Devin Haney. He's already said that, that's a fight that interests him in the future. And I think that Shakur and Haney would do it. They're one of the two guys down there that are really about it. There's obviously other guys as well. Josh Taylor's one at 140. He gone through the hardest route you can to get to where he is. Do you know what I mean? There's other guys as well. So not everybody is disrespecting the sport, but I guess we're highlighting the people that we feel are kind of just creating their own lane instead of rather going for glory, which is what we want to see. But yeah, we're seeing this as well. Big up Punch Mullet. And I can't remember who else said it, but there was some leaks about Ryan Garcia fighting Jojo Diaz. Jojo Diaz apparently deleting the post that he put up, suggesting that him and Ryan Garcia are going to fight in November at 140, which again just highlights the fact that if that is the case, then you're just using Tank's name for clout again, because you two were supposed to fight a year or so ago. Then all of a sudden you were going to fight Pacquiao. That never happened. We know how that story went. And then you took time off. So yeah, is this really going to happen? Is this really serious between these two? Or is it just let's scream each other's names out and then fight somebody else?
It could be any one of those things, man. But like I said, I am not interested in that, to be honest. Like if the Tank and Ryan fight comes around, like I said, I probably will watch it. I wouldn't pay to watch it. I'll tell you that now. But if I can watch it on YouTube and stuff, because it is a good fight between two good young fighters. What I'm against is the way they're going about things. You know what I mean? They're just trying to disrupt the whole integrity of boxing by just going down their own route, shamelessly chasing after money and clout, rather than follow the rules and do the sport the right way. If the sport is to continue the way we want it, it's got to have a degree of integrity attached to it. And the way these guys are going, man, they're just trying to make things up as they go along, create their own rules, do catch weights. And it's just not in the wider interest of boxing. It's just in the interest of those fighters and their particular camps. They don't give a damn about anybody else. And they're quite open in telling you that. I mean, Floyd has used phrases in the past about he's going to rob the bank. And yet people still pay pay-per-view money and watch his fights. And I just think that's like scandalous what he's done, but yet he gets away with it. And this is just another one of those types of things that are going on right now. Mm-hmm. And Jake Paul doing it, he's unashamedly, he's a YouTuber. He's come into the game and that's the route he's going down. But the disappointing thing is to see that boxers are now using that same model now. You know what I mean? So, like I said, maybe I'm sounding a little bit too old school and a bit bitter and twisted, but I'd like to see certain things maintained, man. I mean, I know we're seeing this in other sports a little bit as well. I mean, I don't follow golf, but I'm sure you've seen on the news the thing around this live golf in Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. We've seen it in cricket with breakaway organizations and stuff like that. But I just think if boxing is to maintain its integrity, man, you've got to follow a structure. And if you deviate away from that too much, you have nothing. You know what I mean? So
let's talk about some fights taking place this weekend, man. We got Chris Billam-Smith against Isaac Chamberlain. We got Danny Garcia against Jose Benavidez. You got Josh Kelly back in action as well. Some decent action there with the first two fights anyway. There'll be some curiosity around Josh Kelly being back as well. But Chris Billam-Smith and Isaac Chamberlain, that's actually a good fight. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, very much looking forward to that. It'll be a good fight. I think we have spoken about this previously on the show. And for those of you who watched when we spoke about it before, I did say that I thought that Chris Billam-Smith was a slight but clear favourite in my view, given the fact that the fight's in Bournemouth. He's on a nice little run. He's got some momentum going with him. But, you know, let's not get it twisted, man. Isaac Chamberlain is a good fighter and they're well matched. In fact, I would say that Isaac Chamberlain on a skills level probably got the edge. Billam-Smith is probably the slightly heavier puncher and has the better experience. But it promises to be a good fight. And I've heard in the build-up the two fighters talk. They both sound confident. They both sound like they put the work in. And this is a type of fight, man, that, you know what I mean, boxing that enhances the sport, really, isn't it? Two young guys in their prime, wanting to fight each other, wanting to fight for titles. putting it on the line, and this is what we like to see.
Cruiserweight is actually it's a good division, man. It's a good division.
It is
over here and abroad.
An excellent division in this country.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So yeah,
I've
but like I
seen,
said, I'm edging towards Chris Billam-Smith for the reasons that I stated earlier. The fact that it's a home fight for him, the fact that he's got some momentum, and things seem to be moving in the right direction for him. Not that they're not for Isaac. Isaac hasn't fought for a while in a big fight like this. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards Billam-Smith. But it wouldn't shock me if Isaac was to perform on the night and win. Now, it could be that he performs on the night, should get the win, but doesn't. That wouldn't rule that out either, to be honest. I could see some home cooking going on. But I'm hoping that, you know what I mean, the fight will be scored fairly, and, you know what I mean, whoever deserves to win will get the win. But nevertheless, I'm expecting a good fight.
Do you think Chris Billam-Smith ultimately will just outwork Chamberlain down the stretch? Or you got this going in 12 rounds?
Yeah, it could come down to that. It could come down to desire. And again, if you're the hometown fighter, the lift that the crowd will give you can sometimes carry you over the line. Doesn't mean to say he's got more heart than Isaac Chamberlain. It's just a momentum thing, isn't it? The fact that you're at home, the fact that his punches, the crowd are going to be cheering. Every single punch he lands, that crowd will be cheering. You know what I mean? It's all in his favor. The momentum is with him, like I said. But having said that, Isaac Chamberlain is a good fighter. And like I said to you before, I've heard an interview with him recently where he's been doing a lot of work with Usyk, hasn't he, over the years? So that's quality sparring. And he said he's learned a lot, and he's, you know what I mean? And he's very confident. You could see that by the interviews. He's genuinely confident that he can win. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that fight immensely.
I like the body language of both fighters, man. They're both appearing confident for this. But I think in tight fights like this, where it's gonna be quite wouldn't say it's a close fight between the two. I guess when you do narrow it down to home advantage, and they've both got the big fight experience behind them now as well. So yeah, when you narrow it down to like home advantage, and maybe Billam-Smith slightly being the slight favorite in this, yeah, I'd edge him to take it, but no result will shock me really.
Like I said, I've got Billam-Smith a slight but clear favorite. And you might see that reflected on the scorecards on the night, where he's a slight, say a 116, 114, or 115, 113, you know what I mean, across the board. But then it could go the other way. I think it will go to points, because although both of them can punch, I think they're both of them are resilient. Both of them have got good chins. Yeah. So, yeah. In terms of the Danny Garcia-Benavidez fight, again, it's a very watchable fight. But I would have Danny Garcia a clear winner in that fight. I think that, for a start, Benavidez is coming up a couple of weight divisions, isn't he? He's done his best work as a light welterweight, then a welterweight. Had a decent showing against Terence Crawford. But he's been hampered recently because those of us who follow his career know that he had that out-the-ring incident where he got shot in one of his legs. So his mobility has been compromised. And he doesn't quite look the same fighter. I mean, after the Crawford fight, he had a fight with a bit of a glorified journeyman, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I saw that fight and I thought he lost it. You know what I mean? And lo and behold, now he's fighting Danny Garcia. And Danny Garcia is stepping up in weight, but he naturally the much bigger man, I would have thought, because Danny Garcia was a massive welterweight. Yeah. Not so much in terms of height, but if you look at his structure, his back, how broad he is, how thick he is. Yeah. He's a big guy. God knows how he used to make light welter. But yeah, and he's a solid dude as well, man. Very good.
Underrated toughness, Danny Garcia,
strong, very tough. Underestimated boxing skills as well. He can box and he can punch. So I've got him a clear favorite over Benavidez. I think he stops him late, to be honest.
I think it's a good fight for him to you know, settle in the 154 weight division because it's a fresh start. Do you know what I mean? 154. However, it's a dangerous division to beat in. Do you know what I mean? And at 34, where does he go after this? Because there's not many easy routes at 154. So fair play to DSG, man, for taking that step up. But yeah, Benavidez is a decent opener
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to wet your toes in a new division, ideally you want to be doing it against somebody that's also coming up in weight, to be honest with you. And Benavidez has a name. So, yeah, the fight makes sense. I'm not hating on that fight at all. And like I said, I've got Danny Garcia as a clear favourite. I actually do think that if he performs to anywhere near the level I think he will, I think it'll be too much for Benavidez, and I think he'll stop him. Like I said, I saw Benavidez' last fight, and I was pretty unimpressed, actually. I thought he should have lost it. Yeah. But he will come to fight, though. That's one thing about Benavidez. He's not going to... he will definitely come to fight. So it could be lively. Could be lively.
I think Garcia likes those kind of opponents, though, doesn't he? That come to him.
Good point. Yeah.
Got a great left hook. So
one thing I noticed about Benavidez, though, when he fought Terence Crawford, anyways, that he does have a very good jab. So if he can utilize that jab, stay on the outside. I don't think he should be trying to. Fight on the inside too much with Danny Garcia. And again, you see, that sort of speaks to his lack of mobility with his legs. I don't think he'll be able to stay away from Danny Garcia for too long. But if he can maintain a certain level of distance and use his jab, that's his best opportunity. Because he's not going to stop Danny Garcia, is he? He's not going to, stop him or anything like that. So his only way really is to try and hang in there and box his way to a win. But I can't see it. I've got Danny Garcia stopping him late.
Also this weekend, you've got Josh Kelly and Lucas Bastida that'll be fighting. Also on that undercard, Harlem Eubank will be fighting as well. Up there in Newcastle. Josh Kelly, his career, man, has kind of tailed off a little bit since that loss to...
More than a little bit.
To David Avanesian. But he continues his... he's had some setbacks along the way, not all of them being his fault in terms of getting back in the ring. But he is in action this weekend. And what are we to expect from Josh Kelly, man, at this stage? Really? I
don't know too much about Bastida, but what I would say is that immediately this is a crossroads fight for Kelly. He can't afford to lose it. In fact, he can't even afford to look bad in this fight. If he's going to have any kind of career in boxing, he's got to be beating guys like this and beating them comfortably, because what he will want to do is project that, okay, I lost to Avanesian, but Avanesian is a quality fighter. But with respect, you're not going to be able to say that about this guy, Bastida. So he needs to win and win well and get his career back on track. That should be first and foremost what he's thinking of. I wouldn't even be talking about anybody else right now. He needs this fight. He needs to look good. Try and make a statement as much as possible. First and foremost, get the win. But if you can make a statement, do that. And then, move on to the next one. But I think it's fair to say with Josh Kelly that they're going to have to match him carefully, because we've seen signs that both mentally and physically, he's not the most robust. Well, certainly we've seen evidence of that, haven't we, previously? So they're going to have to be very careful in how they match him. And if they do that successfully, then he can have a career. But it all starts this weekend. If he doesn't beat this guy, to me, don't want to sound too harsh, but he may as well retire. I know that sounds, but it's true, isn't it? I mean, if you're not beating guys like this, then really he's got no real future in the sport. Yeah.
Bastida, his first fight outside of Argentina, I believe. I don't know too much about him either. But these sort of fights we've seen in the past, man, like, they can be dangerous. Do you know what I mean?
They can be dangerous, but I would imagine that whoever's made this fight has probably done their homework and, made sure that the guy doesn't offer too much threat. I'll be willing to bet that Bastida is not a puncher, and that he's been carefully selected in order for Kelly to kickstart his career. I don't want to sound too cynical, bro, but that's how these things tend to run, isn't it?
Ian Hamilton says here, Josh Kelly, I'll say I still have my doubts. If he fully believed in himself, he'd be fighting someone better. He needs a bigger fight after, but he must look good.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, first and foremost, he's got to get through this one. Hopefully he'll get through it and he'll look good. And then that will give him some confidence. Then he'll start talking himself up. They match him similarly in his next fight and try and rebuild him. Basically, they're trying to rebuild his career, aren't they? Because let's be honest.
Yeah, he's on a new platform. It's, something different. He's still young. There is talent there. I guess it's all about what's up here, isn't it? after that loss to Avanesian. Big up Quan, big guns in the building, man. Big up Quan. He says here, Ben would knock out Kelly, which is quite funny, really, because it was not too long ago when Ben was really chasing that fight and Josh Kelly was looking at it like, I'm not interested in you. You're not on my level, man. And now it's like the other way around, isn't it? It's like Conor Benn's kind of surpassed Josh Kelly after that loss to Avanesian. Kelly's since moved up. If they were to fight, I mean, and we can talk about it because Ben is going to be moving up in a higher weight to fight Eubank. If Ben and Kelly fought, is that just a win for you, for Conor Benn now? Sorry, or is that still like a very good fight?
You'd have to say that Ben would start a very clear favourite. I mean, there's an old adage in boxing: you're only as good as your last fight, and if we apply that adage to these two, you can see that they're on two completely different trajectories. That being said, Conor Benn now is sort of deviating off that course to take a catchweight fight against Eubank. But if you know what I mean, if they're both at welterweight and they're looking at securing titles, let's face it, Kelly is a million miles away right now, whereas Conor Benn is kind of knocking on the door, isn't he? He's maybe 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot, realistically. Whereas Kelly is a long way away from that. He's actually in the rebuild second phase of his career.
Well, listen, we've only got an hour today, so I just want to touch on this last topic before we go. And we didn't really touch on his win, but wanted to get your thoughts on what next for Del Boy Chisora. What? Like, we've heard the rumors about him chasing after Deontay Wilder. You know, since then, Shelley Finkel's come out and said they're not really interested in that. So yeah, I just wanted your quick, because we didn't touch on it. We've been away for a couple of weeks. So just your thoughts on that win. What next for Del Boy? And yeah, we'll leave it there.
Well, first up, I've got to be honest. I thought that Del Boy was slightly fortunate to get the nod over Pulev because I scored the fight and I actually had Pulev winning by a couple of rounds. That being said, it was a fairly close fight. And if we're being honest, Derek Chisora's come up on the wrong end of a few decisions similar to that in the past, notably Robert Elenius, notably Dillian White, notably more recently, the first fight with Joseph Parker, which I thought he won and he didn't get. So it could be argued, although it's a bit of a spurious argument to say he deserved to win because he should have got other fights that, you know what I'm saying? So, but I guess, like what they say in football sometimes, things balance out at the end of the day. So, but listen, congratulations to him. Personally, on a human side of things, I would like to see him retire because he's, as you know, he's an aging fighter. He's been around a long time. He does ship a lot of punishment in fights. But he's not going to retire, is he? He said he's not, so we have to respect that. He's going to keep fighting. Who's he going to fight next? He said he wants the Wilder fight. I'm not sure if it's a great fight for him. Although, I would say this. If he's going to fight Wilder, now would probably be the perfect time to fight Wilder, given that Wilder's not been in the ring for a couple of years and was comprehensively beaten in his last couple of fights. So if there ever was a time to get Wilder, it's now. But Shelley Finkel and them guys have said that they're not interested in him. So who does he fight? I don't think his name's been linked with people like Joseph Joyce. So I don't think that Joe Joyce is a good fight for him. Maybe a rematch with Dillian. That might that would get people interested, I think. But listen, man, Derek Chisora is like have gloves, will travel type of guy. He'll fight anyone. So who's to say, man? You know what I mean? But I think if I was in his camp or I was advising him, I would probably try and get a third fight with Dillian because he thinks he won that first fight, doesn't he? That first fight was very close. Yeah. And even in the second fight when he got knocked out, I think it's fair to say that up until the point where he got knocked out, you could make an argument that he was winning that fight. So why not try and avenge that? Yeah. But some of the other names he's been linked with, I'm not sure if they would be good fights for him, to be honest. Yeah, but Dillian White is the obvious one that sticks out for me.
Couple of comments here. Ian Hamilton says here, Wilder versus Chisora would be simple. Del Boy might actually die. He's tailor-made for Wilder. I'd be in fear for him. Quan Big Guns has said here, Chisora would knock out Andy Ruiz. And K22 has said here, Del Boy versus Ruiz is a shout, although I think Ruiz stops him with his power and hand speed. Obviously, Andy Ruiz is going to be up against Luis Ortiz.
Yeah. See, it's interesting because let's be honest, man. And I watched the fight, and I know you watched it as well. Andy Ruiz looked very unimpressive in his last fight against Chris Arreola. A lot of people thought that he could have lost that fight. To me, it could have gone either way. But one thing we do know, he didn't look impressive. So if that type of Andy Ruiz shows up against Chisora, he's definitely got a chance against him. Now, Andy Ruiz is scheduled to fight Luis Ortiz soon, isn't he?
Mm.
So I guess we'll see how he goes in that one. But yeah, man, I mean, like I said before, if I'm Del Boy, the fight with Dillian is an obvious one, isn't it? It's a domestic showdown. They've fought twice before. They've got history. I don't think they like each other, even now, even though they've kind of got over some of the excesses. But it would sell. I think a lot of people in this country would love to see that. And let's be honest, man, Dillian in his last fight, he looked terrible. So he'd be looking at that as a big fight, chance to get himself back in the swing of things. So yeah, I think that's as good as it gets, really, isn't it?
Maybe
for Del Boy, for both of them.
Maybe because you've been kind of advocating Dillian White should retire too. So maybe
yeah, because you know what it is, right? I've got a care inside to me when it comes to fighters, man. I don't really want to see them hanging around taking too much punishment. I mean, we spoke earlier on, didn't we, about Andrade and exhibiting odd signs of behavior. And, you know, this is the type of thing that kicks in later on in fighters' career when they take too much punishment. And let's be honest, Andrade is not even a guy that has taken that much punishment, really, when you compare him to someone like Derek Chisora, who's been beaten up and knocked out a few times. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So that shows you how dangerous this sport is. So I'm not really in favor of fighters going on for too long past their sell-by dates, because what tends to happen is, man, they just get older and slower and start shipping more punishment. So if they can do what they do, get in the game, do as well as you can, make as much money as you can. And when I say make as much money again, I'm not talking about catch weight fights and internet stuff and all that. But, you know, doing things the right way, have a decent career, make your money, win a few titles or whatever it is, fight for titles, and then exit the sport in a humane and satisfying manner. You know what I mean? You don't want to see guys go on too long, man. I mean, let's be honest, man. Even the fight he won the other day, and even that was dubious, Derek Chisora's not won a fight for nearly 3 years. You know what I mean? So to me, he shouldn't really be fighting, if I'm being honest. Yeah. In an ideal world, he should not be fighting. But the man said he wants to fight on. He's created a little buzz for himself in the latter stages of his career. People want to see him fight. So I guess, you know, he's vindicated in that perspective. But in terms of his health and his long-term health, I'd like to see him call it a day. Because let's be honest, he's not going to win any titles. And yes, he's saying about I'm fighting for money and that, but how much more money do you want? How much money is it going to take for you to retire in terms of that set against your long-term health? Which is more important? I would argue the latter.
Yeah. Punch Smiley says here, if there's any clowns willing to take Chisora over Ruiz, I'll take those bets. That's easy money. So yeah, I'll leave that open for any of the guys in chat to deal with. But listen, Laurie, we've come to the end of the show. Only got an hour today, but feels good to be back, man. We'll do a couple more. I'll try and get some more shows in as well. But yeah, it feels good to be back. And shout out to everybody in the comment section. First of all, good to have you guys back here, man. Good to interact with you all. Hit the like button on the way out. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll be back next week with some more content. I'll be providing some more content as well. And in the meantime, guys, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the fights. And just this comment here from Francisco. He says here, good work, brothers. But would you pay £27 for a Canelo tracksuit? Not me. Not right now, anyway.
It's
I don't
funny
know
because
about
talking to Canelo, I wore that T-shirt he bought me the other day to the gym, and a couple of the guys in there asked me where I got it. So I said, "Oh, my son got it from me online." I said, "Oh man, it's really nice and stuff like that." So yeah, but does Canelo even wear tracksuits? I think they're more pajamas, aren't they?
they're no pajamas. Yeah, I have to ask Eddie Hearn, man.
I have to admit, man, I'm not particularly impressed by that clothing line. You know what I mean? The T-shirt's fine, but the pajama thing, no, not for me, unless I'm going to bed. And I don't even wear pajamas in bed anyway. Not that the people out there want to know what I wear in bed anyway. But hey.
I guess that's a good place to leave it, man. Shout out to everybody.
Too much information. Yeah.
We'll
But
catch
yeah,
you
man,
guys.
I'm just to say quickly, Daryl, I'm really looking forward to that fight on Saturday. And like we mentioned him before, but he's making his debut, isn't he? Ben Whitaker. So shout out to
yeah, of course. Yeah, he
he's
is.
making his
Yeah.
debut. So there's a lot of buzz surrounding this young man. So I'll be keen to see how he gets on. Obviously, he's going to win, but we want to see how he looks. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So yeah.
Sure. Well, big up to everyone, man. We'll catch up with you guys next week. I can see Quan, Big Guns, and Punch Mullet. I got that bet on. I'll let you two deal with that. But yeah, we'll catch you guys next week, man. Peace out.
Okay. Take care.